Alrighty. Hello, Gabe. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Greg?
I'm doing great. Welcome, everybody, to the Sunshine Reformer podcast. This is officially episode number 3. Still kind of, doing this by, shooting from the hip, so to speak, pun intended. But here we are, and we've got some really good articles to talk about. Some good content that we've just prepared for today's episode. So I'm going to go ahead and just go right through what I'm going to talk about. So I've got 2 articles today that I've picked out that have to do with firearms, not really specific to the leftist movement, but just in general.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them has to do with Florida, and the other one, I'm losing my train of thought now.
It's okay.
What was the other one?
Are
Oh, the other one has to do with the SRA.
we're mere mortals, so you're fine.
Yeah, and so the other one actually specifically mentions the SRA, which I thought was pretty cool. It's the article is from this past week, so there's that, and then I'm going to discuss with as much time as I have. So I've noticed a lot. I was just telling Gabriel this before we started recording, but I am a part of a few different Facebook groups, gun groups on Facebook, and I would say on a daily basis, at least one person is asking, about they've either made the decision that they want to buy a handgun or they're thinking about it. One of the groups that I'm in is it's a gun group, but it also accepts people that are kind of it's a leftist gun group that it's like you can join if you are thinking about buying a gun or whatever. So there are a lot of
Like
beginners.
an intro beginner kind of thing.
Yeah, there are a lot of people that are who have never bought a firearm, who are thinking about it or whatever. So I want to kind of go down that road and kind of give my recommendations for, what to do, what to look for, different brands that are out there and that kind of thing. Just because I know there's a lot of people out there that are, it can be a really intimidating world if you don't know anything about it. So I'll try to break it down.
There's a lot of history. There's a lot of things that people wouldn't know what to look for.
Especially if you've either never shot a gun before or you've never. Yeah, there's just a lot of stuff in that world. So I'm going to try to break it down a little bit, at least give my 2 cents on it, and we'll go down that road. And Gabriel, what are you going to be talking about?
COVID. Because that hasn't been beaten to death.
Just raw COVID.
COVID. No, it's DeSantis, the governor of Florida. So just, yep.
Sorry, that was my dog. Angus.
Not much can be said about that.
Yeah, he pretty much doesn't give a fuck about Florida, huh?
Nope. I don't think.
And hasn't for a long time.
No, most people don't. It was kind of like the Rick Scott thing. He didn't make a lot of. I don't think, at least he didn't make a lot of really good decisions for Florida. In addition to his mischievous past with the healthcare system and healthcare fraud.
I just thought of a question to ask you. Do you know anything about Andrew Gillum?
Not a whole lot, except for what was like broadcast and made like huge through the news. So like when he was first going for the governorship, or he was running for governorship, just basic stuff. And then like a year afterwards, he was caught apparently in New York.
Yep. Doing blow. Yeah.
So, hey,
cocaine.
When I found that out, I told my boss, I was like, hey, dude, missed opportunity. That guy would have literally represented Florida, man. You know? So it's
right.
like.
But he looks so clean cut and just,
He does. And it just kind of goes to show, like, you never know.
You never know. Yeah. Because it's, in all reality, the race was very, very close. He almost won.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to think of like what would have happened if he did win, and how he might have been,
He may have not
you
ended
know.
up doing anything. Um, he may have ended up going that route because, he didn't get the governorship, The world
No,
moving in
no,
a row.
no. I'm saying, what would he have done with COVID?
Oh, COVID?
I'm saying, what do you think he would have done if he was in
Oh, I
charge?
have no idea. Prior to him running, I didn't know anything about him because this is back. I was like it was one of my first elections I was participating in, and
Yeah.
I didn't really know much about the candidates at the time because it was kind of like, hey, you're old enough to vote now, and this is one of the biggest elections ever, historically speaking. You won't know it yet, but this is one of the biggest
Yeah.
elections historically speaking. Yeah, figure this out. It was kind of, I made some bad decisions, bad calls on some people. And my default role at the time, and to some extent even still now, is that if I am unable to find out any information about a person, I will vote whoever the opposite of the incumbent is. So,
Right.
which could be bad, it could be good, whatever. I don't really know. But my thought process with that is like, the whole point of like at least term limits was to switch people out and go get as far away from the whole dictatorship thing as possible. So
Right.
I would vote whoever non-incumbent was at the time, and to some extent still kind of do with some of like really small names that you just can't find anything on.
Right. So just speaking to that, so I don't know if our listeners or our future listeners are aware, but there is 10 years of time between yourself and I. And I feel like me now, up until this point, so I've voted in quite a few elections at this point, whether local or national. Because my first election, let's see, 20 would have been 2005. So in 2003, I
That
was
was
18.
that was some pretty big stuff back then. You were on the up and coming of like Obama and
Of Obama, yeah. I think Obama was, I want to say it was my first election. Because when was he first in office? 2004?
No, I think that was '08.
08?
I think it was '08. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, so my first election would have been presidential election. I think would have been George Bush's second term.
Which I honestly forget that he did that whole thing.
He had two. Right?
Yeah. I guess that kind of shows how young I am. I only remember him for one.
Yeah. So he was president from 01 to 09. Yeah, so that was my first election. Was his second term. And I think he was running against.
Wasn't he going against like Al Gore or something?
John Kerry.
Okay.
Al Gore, I think, was before that. Yeah, so John Kerry. So I must have voted for John Kerry. But the point is that's how long I've been voting for, and I never, even in like local elections, and I used to live in Michigan then, and I Michigan politics I wasn't really aware of. I didn't really pay attention as a younger person. I probably would have acted the same way had I been living in Florida. What the point is we really haven't had, something major, in my opinion, this major of a divide. Really, at least not in my lifetime, and I don't think for a very long time in general. So it's kind of a major shift in politics historically, and you just happen to be, a little younger than me, and are kind of experiencing that for the first time. But at the same time, it's just really important. So
well, it'll be interesting to see what the outcome is.
Yeah.
I know historically, prior to I think it was like the 1940s or 1950s. Prior to
Uh-huh.
that, there were just long stretches of history where one party would pretty much just dominate, like
Right.
pretty much everything on the federal side,
Right.
and it would kind of switch off like that, like like maybe a decade here, or maybe even 2 or 3 decades. And then up until like the 1940s or 50s or something like that, there was a massive divide, and then we eventually had the change in we had the party switch, where
Right.
Democrats became Republicans, Republicans became Democrats. And that was a big thing, and now
I
it's
know.
just been back and forth, back and forth. Like it's hard to keep like a single party in power, and this is another reason why people like hate, politics probably now more than previously, was that the past, people have grown up an entire generation or 2 generations in just this bickering back and forth between two parties and not getting anything done because one single party isn't in power long enough to do anything substantial.
Right.
Obama did Obamacare, and then as soon as Trump came in, whoop, we're gonna get away with getting rid of some stuff,
Yeah.
and a whole bunch of things, the Iran deal and a bunch of other stuff, but that's another time.
Yes.
Um,
All right.
so I
So
guess
I'm going
let's
to
get
go
into
ahead
our
and,
stuff.
yeah, I'm going to transition here. So my first article, since we mostly just had a brief look into what you're going to be talking about,
Mm-hmm.
I'll go ahead and talk about my stuff. So my first article here, and I don't know, you can bring it up on your screen. I'll do.
Pop it up real quick.
It'll be the local article
That was
from
not
Click
the right
Orlando.
one.
Let me know when you got it up.
I gotta switch screens here. I had the wrong screen have OBS. It's okay.
All right. I'm going to pause you 1 second because I'm going to get another beer.
Do that.
I'll be right back. And I'll go ahead and mention the first beer I had was not local at all, but I'll go ahead and plug my local brewery. Maybe we'll get a sponsorship. I don't know. But this is Cloud Chaser, Hefeweizen from the, what are they called again? Crooked Can?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's, yeah, Crooked Can Brewery right here in Orlando. And it's very refreshing and tasty, and you should go check them out if you're in Orlando.
Sell out.
Exactly.
That's okay though.
You capitalist pig.
I'm gonna pop it up. I had the screen switched, so that was my fault. I'll have to probably change some stuff around later. But I do have the county commissioner article that you provided.
Yes, perfect. So this is, I mean, the article is from August 9th. But the topic is important and relevant, I think. So this says, and what's today?
Today
we're almost to October.
28th. Yeah, we're almost.
Yeah. So it's like a month old article, but that's fine. So this says here, county commissioners support open carry of guns, lowering minimum gun purchase age. And this is Brevard County, which I know a lot of our, we'll just call them friends. I don't want to say that we're affiliated with the SRA.
Yeah.
But the people that we talk to here in Central Florida, we've got a group of friendly folks that we all kind of communicate together. I know some of them live in Brevard County, which is Cocoa Beach, Melbourne, I think Cape Canaveral is Brevard County. Maybe that's a little bit further north. I don't know. It's that area, the Space Coast, so to speak. and the Brevard County Commissioners have come out in support of a change in the Florida statute to allow gun owners in the state to openly carry their weapons as long as they have a concealed carry permit. And then one commissioner was quoted as saying they believe that 18, 19, and 20-year-olds should have complete adult rights. I'm assuming they meant, doesn't say, oh, it's a woman. I'm assuming she meant, younger people that have their carry permits. So there's a lot of people out there who don't live in Florida, who think that Florida is an open carry state, which it is not. And a lot of people are surprised to learn that, being that it's the South, and most other southern states are open carry, to include Georgia, Kentucky, Texas.
Isn't Alabama also open
Yeah,
carry?
Alabama for sure. I don't know about Louisiana, or Mississippi, or some of those other.
I mean, Mississippi literally only just removed the Confederate flag from their state flag. I'm pretty sure they're open carry. If they're not, that'd be embarrassing for them. So
yeah. So there's a lot of contention, a lot of conversation that happens on this subject. Specifically, again, I'm part of a couple gun groups online, and it's a very mixed opinion whether or not people think that open carry should be a thing. Here's my take on it. So the number one thing I hear people say against open carry, is that they come up with the scenario. Oh, if you're at the grocery store or the fucking bank or whatever, and a burglar comes in, or let's just say a bad guy comes in and tries to rob the place and has a gun, and they see that you have a gun, they're going to shoot you first. You're the number one target in the store. Well, first of all, number one, I spent this was probably within the last 6 months. I spent a good 2 or 3 hours researching this claim that that scenario, that you basically become a target if you have a gun and you're open carrying. I could not find one piece of verified, data that suggests that is true. I'm going to go ahead and call FUD lore, which I'm sure I don't know if you're aware of that term.
No, I'm
Gabriel.
not. That sounds ridiculous. What is that?
So the term FUD in the gun world is
the Elmer Fudd thing.
Yeah, it's like the old school gun rules, 1 second per shot at ranges is a FUD thing. Just liking 1911 pistols is a FUD thing.
Oh no, I'm a FUD thing.
Yeah,
I like 1911s. Sorry.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with them, but whatever. It's just kind of it's like a meme.
Them, but also, there's something wrong with them.
Well, they jam a lot. They're just not as reliable as modern firearms.
No, it's true.
So it's just that whole mentality. So that's my consensus for open carry, is that there's no evidence to support that you become a target when you open carry. It's rare, obviously, in Florida, but I have seen people in Florida being either private security or I don't know if they were just police detectives that just in plain clothes or whatever, but I've seen people in my everyday life here in Orlando, at least, walking around open carrying without not being police officers. And I haven't seen any type of reaction to those people in a negative way. Now, obviously, I'm not a mind reader. I don't know what people are thinking in their minds. But in my opinion and in my experience, I haven't seen anything negative. At least, in a public, because a lot of people probably aren't used to seeing non-police officers carrying a firearm. But I haven't seen anything saying that you would be a target or whatever. So, in my opinion, I actually very much I'm in favor of open carry. I'm actually open carrying a firearm right now. I open carry in my house all the time because I work from home, and
Why
I
not?
just
You're allowed
feel
to open
safer.
carry on your own property, so you can do whatever you want.
Exactly.
You know?
So I just feel safer knowing that, my gun is literally right here at my hip, and if I need to use it for any reason, there it is.
Some of the things that are like
So,
really interesting to go into are the whole age thing, because this one, obviously, the United States specifically has gone back and forth with in regards to drinking age.
yes.
But also, there's some contrarian laws in regards to like gun purchasing behavior and or whatever. Like in the state of Florida, up until recently, as you probably know, it used to be that you could be 18 and buy any weapon that or any gun that wasn't a pistol or considered to be a pistol or handgun. You know,
Right. So
that
it was 18 for rifles and 21 for pistols?
yeah, well, rifles, shotguns, like anything that wasn't like a pistol handgun kind of thing. So like the
Yes.
AR pistols that people have couldn't get one if you're 18. You had to be 21.
Right.
So, but recently they changed that. You have to be 21 now.
Right.
So
For
like
everything.
that was, yeah. So it's like, what's the point of being 18? You know, you don't get a discount on your insurance. You can't buy a gun. Like you're the only thing that you get is that you can vote.
I sold, so there's one exception to that I'm aware of, which is if you are in the military.
Yes, if you're in the military, yeah.
Because I did sell, I used to own a Taurus G2C, which is a great firearm. We're going to get into that here in a second. And I know you have a Taurus. But I sold it to buy a Smith & Wesson M&P Compact 2.0. And the gentleman that I sold it to was in the military, and he was only 19. Oh, there you go. There is your Taurus. Beautiful. And that's one of the Millennium series, right? The older ones.
Oh, I don't know if it's Millennium. It's the 709 Slim. I'm not
709.
I'm not too
Well,
familiar with their
that gun
stuff.
has been that gun has been called a couple different things in its lifetime. So currently, it's known as it used to be the G2C, and then they came out with the G3, and now they have the G3C, which is the smaller version. I'll go into all that when I'm going to talk about my last point. But you're right. So the age thing, I think, again, I think I talked about it. I can't remember what I talked about last time. I'll have to look it up. About like training, like as far as just having a training standard. So personally, I disagree with the way that the concealed carry standard of training is now. In Florida, I can't speak to nationwide, but at least in Florida, I don't think that they give you enough training to get a concealed carry license. That's my opinion. But even still, a little bit of training is better than nothing. And I am all for, if somebody's 18 years old and they go to the training and they prove that they are proficient and know basic firearm safety, I would be fine with 18-year-old ownership.
Here's a question. Can the Florida courts basically say, Brevard County, no, you can't do this. This is the state legislature. You can't, according to this, you can't do that. Do you think the state will come down? Because it looks like they got some stuff happening. Commissioners voted 4-1 Tuesday night in favor of a resolution introduced by Chair Brian Lauber. So it looks like it's going to be happening in 2021, in a 2021 session or something. So this looks like it's going to happen. Do you think the state's going to come down and say no? Do you think there's a precedence for that?
Well, that's the toss-up of living in a purple state.
Yeah.
So you remember,
The most
of course,
northern southern state ever.
Yes, exactly. That's because everybody from New York,
Massachusetts, Pennsylvania,
Maine, Michigan,
all come down here.
They all come down here to live, and retire or whatever.
Nothing against snowbirds or anything, you know. It's not a bad thing, you know. Just keep
Yeah.
the HOAs away. I don't like those.
I am a northerner, native, and of course I've moved down here, not to retire, but you know,
To exist, to
to
continue
exist.
existing.
Yes. And as did all of my family, which I wouldn't say that they are anti-gun, but they're definitely not. Ouch. We've talked about this before. We were not gun people. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, so yeah, I don't know. I mean, so the big thing that was on last year or the most recent vote was the high school shooting that happened in Fort Lauderdale.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big point of contention, and there was a lot of stuff going around saying that they were trying to ban AR-15s as a result of that. It never made it to the ballot because it got shut down wherever in the legislative process. It didn't make it to the ballot. Whether or not that's going to happen with open carry, I don't know. Well, I guess we'll just have to see, what happens.
Well, I hope it does go through, because I would like other counties to take on this precedence. It's kind of like the if X number of states do Y thing, then federally it becomes a thing, or is likely to become a thing.
Right.
I would imagine it's something similar to do with the counties to the state level as well. If X number of states do Y thing, then the state will probably do Y thing as well. I hope that's the case.
But you do know how widely varied even just gun rights are, just from state to state.
Well, I'm thinking the fact that that's happening that far down south, because I don't know if you ever look at like an electoral map. For the most part, it's blue from like you can almost draw a line where Orlando is south is pretty much blue for the most part, except for some of the super rural areas, and then almost everything north except Jacksonville and Tallahassee is red. That's where the purple comes in. That's why we're a swing state and considered that. But considering Brevard County is so far south, it's kind of surprising to see them being the one. I would expect this out of Marion or Putnam or something.
Have you been to Brevard County?
I think I was there today, actually.
Well, I mean, just drive through Melbourne and you'll see it's a pretty red area.
Let's put this on.
I think it's a pretty red area from what I went to a couple restaurants there and they were acting like COVID-19 was not a thing.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of going to happen almost anywhere. And that's also partly probably because of the whole DeSantis. Well, when did you go? Because the DeSantis thing was kind of recent.
I just went a month ago.
Oh, okay. Well, then yeah, can't talk about it. Yeah.
And in Orlando right now, currently we have a mask ordinance, so you have to do that. So that's this is actually really funny. I'm just now reading this quote. Listen to this quote real quick. Commissioner Kurt Smith told Lober, "Most liberals have the idea that if a gun appears on a table just lying there, it's going to kill everybody at the table." That's their fear.
Oh, buddy.
You and I know better. Thanks.
This is actually a really cool little map
Smith
here that I found. It's an interactive. It's from the Orlando Sentinel, so I don't really know the validity of them as a journalistic institution. But as far as
they swing right mostly, but I think they actually did endorse Biden.
This map is someone said recently that Biden is simultaneously the accelerationist and the reformist option. Whereas if Biden gets elected, it's possible that there's a bunch of alt-righters that are gonna rise up and start doing stupid stuff. But also he's not a socialist to any.
Right.
He's barely left. So.
Right.
We'll see. We'll see how this turns out. But let's see here. Brevard County looks like they're pretty split, give or take. They're pretty split. They're kind of on this north-south divide too, kind of. Minus this seems like the southeast of Brevard County is the outlier. And there's
Well,
something here.
I just know that they were one of the only counties that did not have a mask ordinance, which is a very unfortunate right-wing thing to do. So maybe it's just their elected officials that are more right-wing.
You know what I didn't think of? I forgot Gainesville existed. That kind of makes the blue a little lopsided. Maybe this changed recently. I think this was 2016, so maybe this changed then.
They voted 4-1 for open carry, so that just
Yeah.
tells you what they are. Because obviously, as we all know, typically gun owners are right-wing. It's really hard for me to like still think about like left-leaning gun ownership as a weird thing.
Well, it's like
'Cause
not
I've been-
broadcasted. It's not like thought about. What we consider left in the United States is like the Democrats, and it's like most
Right.
Democrats are just center right, and then Republicans are just further right.
Right.
And that's like the United States doesn't really have like we don't compare to like other countries when it comes to like having a left. You know, the furthest left candidate we had was Bernie Sanders, and honestly, he's like center left. He's not.
Yeah.
He's not really that far left. At
Right.
least as far as his policy positions go. I mean, he probably holds internally maybe something further left, but he didn't broadcast that. He didn't, he didn't like advocate for a further left, probably because he knew he couldn't get that. But
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know what to tell you there. It's
Yeah.
life
Well,
sucks.
speaking of left-leaning gun ownership, let's
Yes.
transition to our next article here, which is from a publication called The Vermilion, which, if I'm honest, I didn't vet them in any way, but they seem to
Hey,
have
any news or any what is it? Any what is it? Something about free advertisement.
just any news is good news.
Any news is good news, or like any publicity is good publicity, kind of thing. Kind of like
Right.
the Trump mantra, kind of thing, almost.
Right.
You know, it doesn't matter if it makes you look bad or not. I'm getting talked about, sort of.
Right. Exactly.
We'll take it.
You're,
We'll take it.
You're kind of right. So this article is from August 28th. So it's still pretty recent. And this says a false binary. Leftist gun advocates definitely exist. It's true.
Yeah, it is true. Wait,
so
it's
this says
true, Greg?
it's true.
It
Because I am
exists?
a leftist, and here's my gun.
Oh my God! You can't exist. It's impossible.
And check it out. Here's my other gun.
They're fake. They're just props.
They're props. So it says here, the Second Amendment to our Constitution is probably the most contentious of any of the 27 we have. So much so, in fact, that there has been developed an interesting and widespread gun culture of people collecting, showing off, buying, selling, and of course, shooting their weapons for amusement and personal satisfaction. They post memes, they join Facebook groups, they talk gun policy and share news. I know a few of these people, with some being in my own family. Though I myself do not get it, so to speak, I generally understand where these people are coming from and why they have their particular hobby. The political leanings in the gun culture, especially online, skew heavily rightward. Organizations, magazines, social media platforms alike are near universally discuss the topic of gun control as a matter between the liberal left and conservative right. Almost always there is talk of the libs wanting to take away your gun rights, and inevitably the discussion is about adhering to the literal words of the Constitution, which say in their entirety a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. To the right's credit, those words are pretty clear to the layman's reading capabilities, and were apparently clear to 5 out of 9 justices in the Supreme Court in the District of Columbia versus Heller, when they held that the Second Amendment protects an individual's right to bear arms. Although the words do say well-regulated militia, no one can seriously doubt the meaning of the right of the people to keep and bear arms and shall not be infringed. I didn't mean to read this whole thing, but it's pretty
okay.
good.
It kind of helps lead into like the the misattributed quote to Ronald Reagan, but is actually a quote from Karl Marx. Under no pretext should arms and ammunition be surrendered. Any attempt to disarm the workers must be frustrated by force if necessary. So it kind of like has a similar kind of idea, minus the whole like Karl Marx is about workers, and the United States at the time of writing that specific thing was about white people who owned land and slaves. So, I mean,
Yeah.
big difference, but in the end, once we kind of catch up on the whole progressive thing, it kind of there are similar things to it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
It says, and perhaps it shouldn't be doubted. As I said before, conservatives typically are the ones complaining about the left wanting to take away their guns. While it is not true that the majority of those on the left want to completely ban guns, I would argue that it is mainstream among centrists and center-lefts to want to lessen the Second Amendment as much as possible. But not everybody on the left shares this position.
And the right. And it looks like they do talk about... Oh, yeah, hey, look, they talk about the quote from Karl Marx, too. But also, like, Ronald Reagan, famously, we talked about it last time, I think. He was the one that enforced gun regulation in California when he was the governor.
He started it.
And historically, it is conservative or right-leaning individuals who gain power, who actually limit gun use, gun purchasing, gun laws, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, Obama was, like, super Second Amendment dude. And everyone thought, like, oh man, he's gonna take the AR-15s away. It's like, well, Trump banned the bump stocks, like there's been more regulation from the Trump administration than Obama.
And that whole thing, just as a side note, it was never about the bump stocks. It was about the ATF director that he appointed. I think at the time it was like just an acting director or whatever, but that acting director was controversially, or whatever you want to say, anti-2A basically, and so that was the whole deal there. It was never about the bump stocks. It was about the person talking about the bump stocks. So, anyways, so basically, the point of this article is talking about how, despite the fact that most liberals or Democrats or whatever you want to call them are anti-gun, and there's different feelings of I would say intensity there. Some people are just straight up get rid of guns, period. No, we don't want them anywhere. Some people say only cops should have guns. Obviously that's backfired.
That's that's like a bad idea. That's like
that's just the government having guns. And then there's
101. Take all the weapons.
And then there's armed leftists, which is what we are. And then there's armed liberals. There's people that are not so far left in their thinking, but are still left-leaning. There's a couple different groups out there. One of them is called the Liberal Gun Club, which is I kind of used to be a part of them. I don't really. The Florida chapter is not really a thing anymore, and that's another story. But those people in that group are definitely not what I would call leftist or extreme left. They are liberals who are kind of share the same sentiment, but are not, in the same
center
way.
Left kind of thing that
exactly center left.
What we were talking about earlier too.
Yeah. And so there is a group, of course, called the SRA, the Socialist Rifle Association, which I still am not a huge fan of that name, but whatever. It is what it is.
Well, some people, I think there's an argument for it because it helps, like, demystify is not the word I'm looking for. There's a better word for this. But it basically kind of, like, softens the blow if you keep using that rhetoric. It's like when leftists call each other comrades, like openly and publicly. It's trying to like lessen the blow that word has when people hear it, because when someone hears comrade, the Soviet Russia, nuclear bombs, the communism. Oh yeah, propaganda. Communism's bad. It kills people. 2 million trillion thousand people die from communism every second. Like the whole, and it goes down the rabbit hole. So trying to like reassociate Oh yeah, and the whole like the socialists are going to take the guns away.
Yeah, I
Trying to
guess
disassociate that is probably a big thing of theirs.
in the grand scheme of the dirty words, I think socialism is not. I guess that's the best of all of them. It's the least like knee jerk reaction to the word
Yeah.
socialism. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Excuse me. So that is what this article talks about. And I thought that was really cool because, I don't think the SRA, they broadcast themselves, but they don't, not really. Like, I know they're on Twitter and they kind
They're
of
really
try
active on Twitter.
Yeah,
but
I
I don't
know.
see anything on Facebook for them. Probably for a good reason, to be honest.
Yeah. No, I know.
Their Twitter accounts are like. I learn about a lot of news sometimes.
I
from
don't
their
actually
Twitter
have
accounts.
I don't have Twitter, so maybe I got to get on that.
Every
I
now and
haven't,
then I'll look on my Twitter stuff, and I get because I'm on a bunch of like SRA stuff, a bunch of SRA chapters and stuff. I'll find out
Yeah.
about stuff because of the SRA, and then I see it on the news next week. So it's like some of their stuff is on top of it,
Yeah. But yeah, so that's it's just a really great. We've talked about them before. It's a great resource for anybody. You don't even really have to be an extreme left or whatever. Like I would consider myself just left leaning and whatever. We talked about our bios and stuff, but yeah, it's just kind of just reasserts the stuff we already know about, that there's a community of left leaning people that advocate for armed self-defense and are all for guns. So I thought that was really cool. I don't think I have time because we're already 40 minutes in, unless you want to go a little bit overboard. Did you want to start talking about your thing, or?
We can do whatever you want. I got it all up.
Okay.
I was just showing off the SRA site real quick for people. So
I will, as briefly as I can, go over my last point, which is beginning. If you're somebody who's thinking about buying a gun and you never have before, yes. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. So, as I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, I see pretty much on a daily basis somebody saying, "Hey, I've really thought about it. I really want to buy a gun. I don't know what caliber to buy. I don't know what brand to buy. I don't know. Should I get a pistol? Should I get a rifle?" There's a lot of stuff that goes into purchasing your first firearm, and we could do a whole episode on it, really, on everything there is to consider. But I'll try to sum it up because this is, what I'm into, and this is what I'm really passionate about, is not only like just advocating for self-defense and all that kind of stuff, but just learning how to use a gun. I just think is just a skill really everybody should have, even if you're not like super into, like, you don't have to go to the range once a week and shoot 500 rounds and, be super crazy like that. But just knowing how to use a gun and knowing how to shoot and all, just kind of the basics, I think is just a good skill to have just in general.
well, I mean, just to kind of add on to that last part, like what is there, like 400 million guns or something like that? There's like a gun or two for every American in the United States.
In the U.S.? Oh, yeah.
It's like a crazy number of like guns in the United States. So it's like, sooner or later, you're probably going to see one. And statistically, you're probably likely to like use one at some point.
Right. Like, even if it's like, well, I think typically if you're like a shit hit the fan kind of person, you probably already have a gun, but like,
oh yeah, here, watch this. Like thing just opens up and it's just like FBI, like guns everywhere, and it's just, yeah. Or what is it? Men in Black? They just open the thing and it just roars.
If only. But yeah, so that's, there's a lot of stuff out there, but I'm just going to briefly go over today, just specifically, I'm going to go over budget guns because what I've noticed is that most people, for their first gun that they want to buy, typically are on a smaller budget than somebody else who's got 10 guns and they just want the latest and greatest or whatever. So there's a couple of budget brands out there. And okay, so number one, there's the budget brands. There's Ruger. There is Taurus. There is, some people consider Springfield to be a budget brand, although I don't really think they are. Some of their stuff is a little less expensive, and that's fine. Little fun fact about Springfield, all of their striker-fired handguns are made in Croatia, which is not really known for their gun making. It's kind of like when John DeLorean started his car company and he had all the cars made in Ireland, which had never had any kind of automotive
Ireland,
history.
the famous place where they made
where they make cars.
all the cars.
Yeah, which is why they were all terrible. So they're not. Okay, full disclosure, I don't know a lot about the XD series of handguns. I've never really shot one. Never shot a Hellcat, but whatever. There's people out there that still consider them to be sort of a budget brand. Whatever. So Taurus, Ruger, Springfield, Canic is. I think I talked about them last time. They are budget price, but the quality, in my opinion, is still pretty high. What else is there's companies there's weird companies like Keltec, which they're really kind of an outside the box kind of manufacturer. They're a smaller manufacturer here in Florida. There is a company called Sky, which a lot of people mispronounce that name, but it's SCCY, and they are super budget. You can get one of their guns for under $200. High Point, of course, they're famous for being inexpensive, and also, yes, garbage.
But hey, at least they got the yeet cannon.
They do have the yeet cannon. That was the only thing saving them, I think, for within recent times. So all of those brands. My pick for a budget brand, if you are just looking for an inexpensive 9mm handgun for home defense, carry, whatever. It's what you have. The Taurus G. So there's that one, which is the older model. That gun that you're holding, it transferred into the G2 series. So there's the G2S, which was the single stack version, the G2C, which is the double stack version, still compact. And then more recently, they came out with the G3, which is more of a full size. It's kind of a Glock 19 sized frame, but comes with a 15 and a 17 round magazine. And then finally, the most recent gun they have released is called the G3C, which is the compact version of the G3. So all of those guns I just mentioned, they kind of share the same platform. They're kind of an evolution of each other over time. And all of them are going to be less than $300, including the bigger regular G3 model.
And you can always get these things used too. Like I got this from a friend, so I bought it off of him.
Right. Yeah.
So,
the used market.
Yeah. So if you can get something that Greg's recommending, but used, that's probably going to be really budget friendly. Just make sure you know what you're buying. Make sure you have someone who's looking at stuff and knows what they're looking for.
Exactly. So I typically like to recommend brand new guns. I kind of see buying used guns as buying a used car. You never know what that person did to it.
You buy someone else's problems, as my
exactly
grandfather says.
That's a typical grandpa thing. Exactly. There's, generally speaking, there's not really anything wrong with buying used guns, but you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. Most gun sales, even on the private sales market, are final sale. And so when you buy it, just know that there might be something wrong with it, even though somebody could say, oh, I barely shot this thing. I put 200 rounds through it and I didn't like it. And now I'm selling it. Well, maybe they have 20,000 rounds through it. You never know. So I do recommend looking at used there's like Arms List and Gun Broker and stuff, but typically speaking, especially for your first gun, I generally recommend buying a new gun. There's might be other people out there that disagree with me, but that's my advice. So number one, budget. Taurus. There's a lot of speculation out there about their reliability. Here's the thing. Within the last 2 years, Taurus built a brand new, I think it cost them almost like $1 billion. Maybe it was maybe a little less than that. I don't know. They spent a lot of money in Georgia. They built a whole giant brand new manufacturing facility. They used to be headquartered. Their U.S. operations were in Miami. They call it the Miami era guns were kind of questionable. But as soon as they moved into Georgia, which I know was in the last 2, maybe even 3 years ago, I'm not sure exactly when that happened. But since then, since they've been manufacturing in Georgia, I know for a fact that the guns coming out of that factory are as good as it gets for a $300 gun, $250 gun. Reliability is there. The only thing that I say to people that have a Taurus, just clean your weapon. And you should be doing that anyways with any weapon, but the more you clean it and just make sure it's maintained and everything, you're going to have reliability. And I'm not sure if they shoot steel. I know my gun does. I think there's been some issues with steel case ammo. Some guns don't shoot steel case as well as brass, but that's another thing. But generally speaking, if you have regular 9mm ammo and you take care of your gun, it'll take care of you. Number one. Number two, Ruger. So my wife, I'm a big fan of Ruger. I have an LCP 380, which is a tiny little, it's a gun the size of an iPhone. Tiny little 380. My wife carries it. And typically, I've had different Ruger guns. I used to have a 1022, which is a 22 rifle. I've had good luck with Ruger handguns, firearms. I bought a Ruger Security 9, which is like their budget 9mm. You can get one for less than $300. It comes in a subcompact and a compact, which is the Glock 19 size. My wife's subcompact Ruger Security 9 was a piece of garbage. Did not work at all. So I see people recommending these guns. I've only had the one sample size of one gun. Maybe it was a lemon. I don't know. But in my experience, it was not good.
Did you guys get anything back? Was there like any warranty process or anything that you guys had for that?
I just sold it. I sold it for, but I didn't lose money on it.
Okay, well that's not bad then. Someone was willing to take it on, knowing that.
I sold it, and I just told him, I think I did tell him that it didn't shoot steel, and that was the biggest thing for that gun is it didn't shoot steel. And then after I shot steel in the gun for a while, it didn't even cycle brass, regular brass. So
that's annoying.
Again, I don't know if it was just the gun, if I got a lemon, like just one gun that didn't work properly, but for me, that was the case. Springfield, like I already mentioned, I don't know that much about, but read the reviews or whatever. I don't know. High Point, I think I mentioned this last time. Don't get a High Point. They're just the design. It's not even the fact that they're inexpensive. It's just that they are a poor design. They're blowback only. They only hold like 7 or 8 rounds or whatever. For just a little bit more, you can get a Taurus, which is either double stack. They do sell the single stack G2S, but
yeah, mine's a single stack, by the way.
Yeah, I always advocate if your state allows for more than 10 rounds, get a double stack. Sky. So Sky guns are, I would say, second to Taurus, are probably the second most famous budget firearm company. You can get all of their guns are the same size. They sell them in 380 and 9mm. They are 10 plus 1 capacity, double stack, subcompact firearms. My only problem with Sky firearms is the trigger pull on their guns is basically what you'd call a double action only. It's super long, super heavy. It's just not my thing. And believe it or not, so my wife has owned more guns than I have in her quest to find a good carry gun. We bought, I'm not going to go over everything that we bought, but we bought a lot of guns for her to try and see what she likes and what she doesn't like. And at one point we did have a Sky, and I just wasn't a big fan of it. That being said, it didn't have any reliability issues. So if it's something that, your friend has one and you want to try it out or whatever, because I don't think they rent them out at a lot of ranges, they're probably going to be reliable. But just in general, the way that the gun is designed for me, it just wasn't my thing. So take that for what it's worth. And then, my thoughts on Glocks. That's what I wanted to talk about. So a lot of people, again, when they ask this question in these gun groups, probably 5 or 6 of the responses are say, get a Glock 19, get a Glock 17, whatever. Okay, Glock handguns came out in 1981, I believe, was the Glock 17, which, of course, is the police standard for almost everybody. So that gun was a thing. M&Ps didn't come around until 2005, Smith & Wesson. So they were basically the only polymer frame striker-fired handgun on the market for probably 20 years, at least, until something. I think the VP9 came out a little bit earlier than the Smith & Wesson from H&K. And maybe the FN509 too. I'm not really sure on the history there. But the point is Glock was around. They were first, and they were around the longest before anything else came to market. Since 2004 or 5, whatever, until now, the market has just blown up with striker-fired handguns, polymer frame striker-fired handguns, all of which, so Smith & Wesson, CZ, HK, FN, Sig Sauer, of course, all of these major manufacturers, in my opinion, have improved upon that platform exponentially over a Glock 19, and all of those I just mentioned are about the same price also. So Glock 19 is usually somewhere between $500 and $600. That's generally most of the guns that are in that price, or the polymer frame striker fired. Most of those guns are going to be in that price range. The one exception, Canik. So I mentioned it last time, but Canik firearms are Turkish made. They're NATO spec, so they shoot like 60,000 rounds before through these guns before they put them on the market. Anytime they come up with a new model, they do all that kind of testing. They're used in the Turkish military. I know that there's a lot of bullshit going on with Turkey, and Erdogan is a fucking nightmare, and that's fine. But they don't. I don't want to get like a bunch of comments and stuff and saying that like I'm saying the wrong information. So I don't really know what's going on, but I just know that they are imported by a U.S. importer that's actually based here in Florida also. And for the price and just everything you get in the box and everything, to me, Canik firearms are the absolute best value as far as quality to cost, how much the guns cost. Obviously, Taurus costs less. What was the other one I mentioned? Sky costs less. But if you want like a high quality duty style firearm that's in the same vein as, Sig Sauer and Smith & Wesson, Glock, whatever, Canik firearms. And that's, I think we just got into an hour time. So,
but Greg, the police all have Glocks. Why should I get a Canik?
So the short answer to that, Angus, come here. Sorry. Come here. It's okay. Come here. The short answer to what I say to people that are into Glocks is this. If you want to buy a Glock, buy a Glock. There is nothing wrong with them. They are high quality, reliable handguns that cost, $550, $600. But they are underfeatured. There's even the CZP-10C, which is a direct competitor to the Glock 19. I think it's actually a little bit less money. I think they come in around $500.
I think we even talked about that, about Glocks being like super modded. Like people buy a Glock and then they mod the hell out of it.
Right. So
Like
out of the box,
that's a meme.
Yeah, out of the box, they are just not. They're not great guns compared to even, let's just say the M&P, the SIG P320, and the P10C. Compared to those three guns, all three of those guns are better choices over a Glock 19, in my opinion. Ergonomics, the sights, the trigger, just in general, just the designs of those other three guns are better. Excuse me, in my opinion, for the money, which is around the same money. Like I said, it's a 40-year-old design. They haven't really done much in those 40 years. I know they have different generations and stuff, but really they haven't changed anything in that amount of time. And furthermore, are you aware of a company called Palmetto State Armory?
No, but I feel like I'm about to.
So Palmetto State Armory is a company in South Carolina, and they are famous for their budget AR-15s. So you can get onto the Palmetto State Armory website. Now, because of, let's just say pre-COVID. Pre-COVID, you could get a pretty nice quality AR-15 mil spec, just the basic 16-inch AR-15 rifle for less than $500, which is a really good price. That's about the same price as the Glock 19. So Palmetto State Armory so there's a industry show every year in January called SHOT Show. It's in Vegas every year. All the manufacturers come out and they show all their new products for the year. Well, in January, Palmetto State Armory announced their first polymer striker-fired handgun called the Dagger 9. And it is 95% parts compatible with a Gen 3 Glock 19. And they are selling it.
Do that. That sounds like a
because the patent on the Gen 3 Glock 19 expired. So, but it's their own design though. So it's their own. Like you look at the gun and it kind of looks like a Glock, but it's got Palmetto State Armory logos on it. The texture's different. The trigger's different. The slide looks a little different. So they kind of made their own version of a Glock 19 that just happens to be parts compatible with, it takes Glock magazines, Glock sights, Glock triggers, you name it, it pretty much is compatible with those Glocks. Here's the kicker, $299 retail. So almost half the price of a Glock 19, normally is what this is retailing for.
I pulled up the site and I'm showing it right now. It's out of stock.
Yeah, it just went on sale last Friday, and they sold out in an hour.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. That's awesome.
But it's a cool gun though, right?
It looks pretty sick.
Mm-hmm. So that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Is there's these companies out there that are completely disrupting this industry, and basically the sentiment is you don't have to spend $600 to get a high quality gun anymore. You really, really don't. And that's my point, because most people that are, especially new gun owners, everybody, and this for me, I've only been buying guns for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's most people that you talk to that have been buying guns or either into guns for a long time, even just in the last 10 years, you could say, most people are going to tell you to buy a Glock 19 because it's the quote unquote standard. And that just is not,
doesn't hold water anymore.
Yeah, it's not the way it is anymore. So that's my rant. If you want a Glock, if you like the way they look and, whatever, buy a Glock. But just know that there's other stuff out there. in the market. That's all I have to say about that.
That was a good little bit, but it was important information too. So
Thank you.
it was important.
And of course, it does. I'm not really talking about California and New York and stuff, because California has something called a gun roster,
Yeah.
where you literally are limited by. Like, I looked at it not that long ago, and it's pretty slim pickings, which is crazy. So this just speaks to everybody else who doesn't live in California or New York. I think they might have a list. I'm not sure.
Tragic.
Hang on, Angus. Sorry,
It's okay.
Angus. Hey, come here. He's gonna just do his thing. He sees something out there.
He's protecting you from all the
Yeah.
squirrels. Just a horde of squirrels running up the
And also
street. A big
all the
furball.
lizard. He chases the lizards too,
My dog does
which
the same thing.
I learned are called anoles. ANOLE.
So there's the green anole or anoles. I don't know how to pronounce it. I've only
Anole,
ever read
whatever.
it. There's the green ones and the brown ones.
Yeah.
I believe the green ones are invasive from Cuba.
I believe you're right.
Back when we were doing a bunch of shipping and trading, they're invasive. So if you see green anoles, or look this up, whichever one is the invasive one, kill on sight.
Exactly. If you can catch them.
Yeah, or something, because you're not going to make a huge impact, but I mean, it'll help the native population of lizards and stuff we actually have a lot of invasive species in Florida. The grasshoppers, I don't know if you guys get them over where you're at, but we get them like crazy. The nasty little grasshoppers, they start out like this big and they're black, and then they get to be like this big, and they're like
Really?
multicolored, like yellow and brown and black and stuff. And
Not that big. We don't get anything like that.
dude,
Here.
they're so annoying. They're super invasive. Like in the beginning of like spring, summerish, something like that, like you'll walk into the grass and it's just a black wave of these grasshoppers jumping away from your feet. And they're horrible. They're horrible. They eat everything.
Yeah. No, I know. I just watched we're going off kilter again. But I just watched a documentary on invasive. Like, I already knew about like the Burmese pythons and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a species of like lionfish, I guess. It's like off the coast of Tampa.
Yep.
That's super like fucking shit up.
They eat everything, and there's no competition because they're venomous.
Right. They don't have any predators. Yeah. It's crazy. So humans suck or whatever.
Yeah. Humans are being incentivized to catch the fish and serve them.
They eat them.
And eat them. So just the more stuff, more.
Have you been down to South Florida where they have the iguanas?
No, I haven't been that far.
Bro.
Haven't been that far.
These things are literally, they're like 3 feet long.
Well, when it gets cold and they have a cold snap, they'll fall from trees. So there are signs that'll say like, watch for falling iguanas or something like that. Or, like,
and they're completely invasive. Yeah.
So
it's insane. Yeah.
Oof.
My man, I feel bad. Do you want to keep going for a little bit?
We
or
can touch up on the COVID thing. It's not anything huge, honestly.
I know, but I still want to hear it.
It's a local thing. Let me get this up. And it does matter because, it's COVID, and COVID sucks right now for everybody. But if you haven't heard already, Ron DeSantis is just going straight into the third part of his plan for the COVID thing of reintroducing businesses, reintroducing people to the marketplace, all this stuff.
It's a nightmare.
I was listening to NPR. I think it was last week, and one of the like department heads for like some like the business organization stuff and interactions and stuff like that, he was being interviewed, and they were asking him questions like, "Hey, so like, what makes us think that that restaurants specifically can handle the restrictions and what they need to do to keep COVID cases down and all that?" And he's talking. He's like, I think we learned from the past couple experiences. We tried to reintroduce customers and stuff and people back into restaurants prior, and it didn't work out, and we had to shut down. And I think the restaurants have learned. I think they learned to actually follow, blah blah blah.
When
blah,
has
blah,
anyone
whatever.
ever learned anything?
But,
DeSantis.
yeah. So now they're going ahead and they're just going to go full capacity.
Yeah.
And I think I think they only just did the second part of the plan like the past month or so. Like this is like what is it, steamrolling just straight through, just like, oh yeah, check. We're just gonna go straight for the for full capacity now. So now
It makes
up
me
to
wonder.
restaurants and local stuff too.
Well, I don't know if you're aware, but I live in a city called Orlando,
Really?
which is home to a destination called Disney World.
what the hell's Disney World? I never heard of it before.
Well, let me tell you, Gabriel, Disney World, before COVID-19, would host close to 100,000 people
Mm-hmm.
on a daily basis. Probably more than that on some days. And 75 million people last year came to Disney World, which is quite a lot of people. It's the most visited place on the fucking planet, for one thing. And I'm pretty sure that so all jokes aside,
Mm-hmm.
I go to Disney World a lot for the business that my wife and I run. And generally speaking, I feel safer at Disney World than I do at my local Publix grocery store.
Yeah,
They haven't.
Disney's on top of their stuff, dude.
They are on top of it, and I think what needs to happen is I think a lot of places need to take, use them as an example, as the example, and the standard as how to handle this kind of thing. Unfortunately, however, because really, it's not. It wouldn't. I don't think it would cost businesses any more money to do what Disney's doing, in order to stay compliant with regulations or with recommendations from the CDC. But it has become a political fucking thing, which is just a nightmare. Because really all they're doing is just saying, I know that Disney World's a big place and, it's all outdoors pretty much. But even when you're just walking around the parks, you have to have a mask on and it has to cover your whole fucking face, not just your fucking,
That's
the
actually
nose.
really cool that they enforce that, because like that's one of the biggest like moments when you're like out and about, like at a grocery store, and you see someone who's like, they have this as their mask.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's like-
I know.
Or
Well, people are dumb.
they'll push. I've seen people literally push it up to their nose only, so their mouth is showing.
Yeah, well, it's because people have sunglasses on and they don't like it to be fucking foggy and shit, and I get it, whatever. But so anyways, so they do. Their security guards are enforcing that. And when you walk around the Disney parks, you must have a mask on. The only time that you don't have to have a mask on is if you are stationary and also eating or drinking. So that's kind of the protocol. And they have signs up everywhere, and there's sanitizing stations everywhere. And that's Disney World. If you are a small business, like such as a restaurant or grocery store or whatever, Publix has been pretty good about it. They're the they're the statewide grocery chain, if you're not familiar. It's basically our version of Kroger,
And they also
H&B,
have subs.
and they also have pub subs.
Yep.
Have you ever been to Texas before for the Heb?
No, I'm uncultured swine. Unfortunately.
We used to live in Texas, and there's a restaurant chain called HEB, and grocery store chain, HEB. And so, anyways, so they're just like that. But so they've been pretty good about it. But I just this whole restaurant thing, like poor restaurants, again, as we just mentioned before, I think it does matter where you live, like what county you live in. And either you give a fuck or you don't.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's just kind of the way it is.
And then
It's unfortunate.
really, I want to address something real quick.
Go ahead.
There are going to be a lot of people they're like, you know, previously employed with XYZ restaurant, you know, and that's kind of like their livelihood and everything.
Right.
And you know, we'll probably get pooped on because, you know, we're sitting here, we're comfortable, we have jobs and houses and stuff, and there are people who are literally like, they have nothing that they can do right now, and they're like looking at not having a house, and they're figuring out how to eat and everything, and they're probably going to hate this, or that whole segment prior to this point. It's like, well, reopen because we need the jobs and everything. It's like, well, no, we should have legislature, we should have protections in place,
Right,
that prevent you from, you know, being like at risk of being kicked out onto the side of the road just because like there's a pandemic. You know, everyone, I know the leftist community like hates Obama and everything because like, well, he still bombed Yemen, or like, you know, whatever, and infamously known for his Middle East policy not being too great and everything. But he like did do good things, and one of the good things that he did that Trump took away was the I don't remember the exact name of it, but it's like a pandemic crisis unit type thing where like they identify quickly like new viruses and bacteria that could spread through a population quickly, and try to isolate and eradicate that. Like those specific things before they became a big thing. Well, Trump got rid of that in like, I think it was 2017, 2018 or something like that. And then, well, look where we're at now. We could have used it, you know?
Well, here's the thing I was going to ask you, and you may or may not know the answer. Probably for more self-preservation purposes, I don't really follow the news. I try to follow the news nationally as much as I can to still remain sane and not have to take Xanax or whatever. But furthermore, I don't really follow the news of other nations.
Nobody in America does. Nobody. Like, there's not a single person who understands foreign policy.
I mean, I do, but I don't. You know what I mean? Like, I'm kind of lukewarm about it. So do you know... I know that like there was some talk about Sweden, how they were doing things.
So,
and do you know what? So my question is, do you know about any other nation besides New Zealand, which I know was COVID free for a little bit?
That's doing really good.
Yeah. Do you know anybody?
Korea.
Yeah. South Korea.
Yeah, they're doing awesome. They have one of the lowest. They have one of the lowest death rates. They did what we should have done in the first place. Same thing with New Zealand, and we'll talk about. I think it's Sweden that is the conservative hype train in the United States right now, because their big thing with Sweden or whatever it is that, well, they never did a shutdown or anything like that, and their deaths are pretty low, and they're looking at like straight deaths. I think, if I remember correctly, Sweden's death rate for COVID is the same as the United States, or like really similar. So like, Sweden's not a very good argument if you're a conservative thinking about, you know, like, well, Sweden's actually doing, well, not really. This is why we look at per capita statistics. Per capita, Sweden is doing. Why the
fuck don't conservatives know about per capita?
I feel like some of them do, and they like completely ignore, because, you know, like there are people who are like snaky and like sleazy and all that, and they know how to misinterpret data. Like Ben Shapiro is one of these people. He'll like deliberately misinterpret information from like a study, and then because he gish gallops in his debates and he's just quick on his toes and all that, he's able to convince people like this is the thing. And then if you look at the actual study, you'll find like, oh, well, they're talking about XYZ and Ben Shapiro is talking about ABC. And Ben Shapiro doesn't actually talk about any of the points at all, and that's kind of like some conservatives deliberately do it. Some people just kind of like follow the talking points.
Here's the thing: I'm 35. I was not a great student in school. I'm not trying to say that like I didn't need school because I'm so fucking smart. But like I didn't go to college. I've known like what per capita, like the idea of using a per capita percentage. I've known about this idea for as long as I can remember. I've had conversations with people in my life and over the years and stuff about different things, and I've kind of, gone with regard to whatever my topic of interest is at the time. But I've known like what that concept is. Like, you can't just take a country's population and another country's population and compare them together. It's got to be per capita, and that's how you compare populations of people.
And it works both ways. It works both ways. You could have a massive population, like in India, second largest population in the world,
right?
And if they have like a 0.01% mortality rate of X item, that's fairly low. But if you look at the hard number, it's huge. And on the opposite end, you could have like an incredibly small country like the Vatican.
Yeah, and if they have the same per capita, it's still
it would be the same percentage. But if for some reason, like let's say India, I don't know, had like 100 deaths of something, and the Vatican had 200 deaths, well, it's like looking at the flat numbers, you can tell, well, the Vatican had more deaths, but they're
per capita.
but they're somewhat the same if you look at the hard number. But if you look at per capita, that could be like 25-50% of the whole like nation's population right there.
Right.
It's ravaging through.
That he had that interview recently, Donald Trump I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Where he's like, no. The guy was like, you have to look at per capita. And he's like, no, we don't do that. And I was like, what the fuck do you mean you don't do that? That's how it works.
If you want to misinterpret the data, if you want to mislead people, if you want to make people intentionally believe something that's not the case, just look at hard numbers, of course, because you want to trick people. You don't want them to actually see the real thing.
That's the thing is like, I'm not a fucking genius by any means. I think I'm kind of smart, but like I've known what that concept was with as far as the idea of comparing different things with different countries and whatever. This is not even COVID. Like, this is just living my life,
Well, and like this bleeds over to other topics too, because like conservatives, and I know I'm like painting with a broad brush, but it's like if you're a conservative, and like you already like subscribe to some of these ideas, and then we talked about this before too with Trump, whether he calls himself fascist or not doesn't matter. The actions he takes are fascistic. Therefore, we would call Trump fascist. The same thing applies to conservative mindset or conservative ideology or whatever you want to call it. Whether or not you actually are racist, or whether or not you are actually sexist, or whether or not you are actually like against gender equality or whatever, doesn't matter, because your policy decisions and the decisions you make are what actually matter. And that's where like that painting with a broad brush, I can accurately describe like an entire population of people to an extent. Obviously, like, conservatives for some reason have a hard time with understanding per capita when it comes to black people being put in prisons at a disproportionate rate compared to white people, despite making up 13% of the population. And this is a meme too. This is a horrible meme. The 1350 meme. Are you aware of it?
I know that black people make up 13% of the population, but I'm not aware of.
It's a Nazi meme or a white supremacist meme. It's the
13.
Despite making up 13% of the population, black people commit 50% of the crime, which to some degree, when the statistic was pulled, is technically correct. But you go into the actual information about it, where it's like black communities are overly policed. To a ridiculous extent. Black communities are disproportionately impoverished because
there's a whole
bunch of reasons, and it's like
there's a whole I don't know the source material, but if you just type in systemic racism to YouTube, there's a video that basically highlights really just the 20th century, and really even post-war, because
post-World War II? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, post-World War II. There's a whole thing that talks about how Eisenhower, when he was fucking doing the designing of the highway system.
Yes. This actually affected
you know what I'm talking
St. Augustine.
So you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, this actually deliberately affected St. Augustine. And if you go into like some of the tours actually will mention this in St. Augustine. Not a lot of them do though.
Yeah.
But we have a road like everybody does in every town. It's called King Street. Ours is, I think, West King Street in St. Augustine. It goes there. It goes straight through and over 95. There's no on ramps or off ramps to or from 95. It goes over, and it's nestled between the.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's nestled between the exit for 207 and 16. It's right in between those two. They deliberately didn't put an exit there because it was the black community, and they didn't want people who are visiting St. Augustine as tourists to see the black community. So they deliberately pushed away possible tourist exits north and south of the black community so that they could just completely bypass it. And it's like that happened back in Eisenhower. That's like what, 70 years ago now or something like that? That was in the 50s, dude, that they built that. You know, can you imagine like multi-generational like problems from that? Like you don't work you either work in St. Augustine or you work in Jacksonville. That's it. If you work in Jacksonville and you live in in the King Street area, you have to drive north or south, depending which one's closer, to an on-ramp to go north. And you're adding like 10 to 30 minutes to your drive every day that you wouldn't need to if people weren't racist.
But like, it's not just Jacksonville, brother. It is the entire fucking country.
Oh yeah.
Was designed this way. The entire country. It's because it's in every major city. It's in every major city. It's in every major every state. Maybe like not like Montana or whatever the fuck. You know what I mean? Like
where they have like a population of like one person per like 80 miles or something.
Yeah, cities with populations with like 500,000 or more. You know, this is the case. Because I'm from Detroit, for example, and you know, shout out to my 313 homies out there. But if you don't know the history of Detroit, you know, look some stuff up. It's a fucking nightmare, man. And so, aw, Soup's cutes. Love it.
She's adorable.
Bedtime. Yeah, so that's, you know, it's just a wild nation. We could get into the history of everything
too. That's just one thing.
That's just one thing.
So
I know it's crazy. Yeah, man, we're approaching an hour and a half here.
Yep.
What do you think?
I'm thinking.
Have you said what you need to say?
Yeah, I said what I need to say. Florida's a shit show. DeSantis sucks. We should have taken more strict precautions in the first place. You know, done the New Zealand route, done the South Korea route. But you know, got to live with what we got to live with. And for those who are impacted by it, instead of thinking, you know, I need to get back to work now. While that is an immediate issue, once you get back to work and get into a position where you're comfortable again, maybe reconsider who you're voting for locally and nationally. You know, I think that's like the biggest issue is voting. Like the system technically was working up until recently. You know, I think conservative or Republicans specifically make up like 30 to 40% of the population, but they tend to like have a heavier weight in their vote because more of them vote than people who are left leaning or like liberal leaning. So signing up to voting actually does matter, and that's the only thing that's going to end up changing this in the long run.
Yeah.
So
I completely agree. Is that your conclusion?
Yeah, I think that's my thing. I was thinking maybe we like plug in again the SRA and any other organizations that, you know, we support at the end.
So the SRA, as we've mentioned many times, is Socialist Rifle Association. In my opinion, they are the preemptive leftist, you know, 2A advocates, etc. for left-leaning people. There's a lot of different, we've talked about this before, but there's a lot of variation in even on the left. There's a big spectrum, so to speak. I would say even bigger or more so than the right side.
Oh yeah,
right
because the right, it's
leaning.
like you're a libertarian or you're like a fascist. Like, because those are the two. That's pretty much it. Like the authoritarian route or the kind of free route, but not really free.
Yeah.
So
So anyway, so as far as if you are any kind of left leaning or whatever, that's who we always endorse. If you're thinking about buying a gun, or if you just want to get into the politics of gun ownership or whatever, if you're anywhere on that spectrum, they're a really good source for that. All that being said, my name is Greg.
my name is Gabriel.
And this has been the Sunshine Reformer podcast, episode 3. Stay tuned for the next one, which we record every Monday. So we're going to try to have out a new episode every week. And we'll see how this goes.
Woohoo!
Bye, guys. Thanks.